Welcome back to PC Magic and the Elemental Transmutation build. The build's 99% complete. There's a couple of little things left to finish, like when the client turns up, whether I add a little bit more pastel or whatnot, just a couple of little things. But thought it was time to show you a final vid. Excuse the notes here. There was a couple of things I want to go through, so I have made notes to help me along with this vid. The case probably doesn't look all that big compared to the monitor, by the way. It's a rather large monitor, so don't be fooled. This is a full-size tower, as you would have noted before if you'd seen the first vid. Now, you're seeing it with the side panel on. I put that on so you can see what it looked like initially. I'll take it off, have a little bit more of a look at what's going on underneath and what was involved in the build. Any points of note, if you have any of the particular hardware that is involved in the build. Excuse me for 1 second. Put that safely away. Okay, so just going through componentry, things changed here and there with the build due to whether things would fit or whether they were ideal. I think when you advise someone on a build, you should recognise that they're an enthusiast if they are, and give them the best recommendation, not just something that'll do, which is what I find we get from a lot of computer stores when we go in and speak to people behind the counter. So we've got a 360 rad at the back by 38mm, 3 Corsair static pressure fans on there. We've got another one at the bottom here in a 240, a 240mm rad, and static pressure fans. Airflow is inwards from the bottom because of your air filter being at the bottom, which is magnetic, by the way, and flowing out through the back. There's also 2 airflow, not static pressure fans at the front here, which obviously they flow beautifully onto the RAM and motherboard and all that sort of stuff. So obviously it doesn't need, with the amount of water cooling on it, to worry about too much about things, but RAM always is a concern. I like to make sure it's nice and cool. Very hard to overheat Trident Z 3733 RAM, which it is because it's the B die RAM. I mean, that stuff will take 1.8, 1.9 volts. Currently only running at its 1.35. Now, at the back, we were going to use an Alpha Cool D5 pump. It was square and it was rather large at the bottom, and it really only left a millimetre or 2 in certain areas when I tried different options for mounting it. It was ideal to swap that pump out and get it's a superior pump anyway, the EK D5 Revo, which has the 4-pin PW, and the Alpha Cool didn't have that, it only had the 3-pin. So I think it's a better choice anyway, and it was easier to deal with, if truth be told. Had to get the drill out and screw some holes in the back to mount it in that position, but it's the perfect position for it. Blocks the access to the I/O panel and graphics cards a little bit, but you can work around that. Now, the customer wanted things to be as straight as possible. Not everything could be super straight, as you can see, but these bends, if you were to look side on, are absolutely perfect until they split away and go down there. So there's a lot of time and effort put into the geometry mathematics of the build. Straight. This joining of the graphics cards was an interesting thing. It's Bits Power make an SLI water bridge, which I was going to use in the build, but due to the distance between the slots, they didn't actually make the appropriate one. It's a different slot width than a lot of other people's motherboards. So what I did is, there was no way you could heat up the tubing so that you could get it between the 2 fittings and slot them on while they were in the case, or while they were in the motherboard. So I had to pull both cards out using the PC. This is a tip for you: using the SLI bridge to keep them appropriately together while you were handling them, and even while joining them together on the bench, the SLI bridge will measure out your distance for you so that you know that you've got them right. You can actually tighten up the compression fittings on the bench before you put them back in the case, because the SLI bridge will keep your spacing right. Always test. So the water cooling's working really well. Look, even better than I expected, if I'm honest. It took a bit more time with the first water block, but they're really quite easy to mount. The second one took no time whatsoever on the graphics cards. One thing I liked about the graphics card water blocks over the EK mono block is that their thermal pads that they provide with them come with one sticky side. When you've got, with the EK mono block, it was like a floating mount. The thermal pads didn't have a sticky side. You can't easily flip a motherboard when you're doing this. The thermal pads were quite slippery, for lack of another word. So, laugh or not, the ideal way was to float mount it as accurately as possible, bring it to the edge of a table and get underneath it and carefully work the screws in, which lined up perfectly for me, and first crack it wasn't an issue at all. I could see how someone might have a couple of goes at that. My advice is to order separate thermal pads for the monoblock, ones that do have a sticky side. Just make sure they're good ones. Obviously EK wouldn't supply something that's not 100% compatible with their product, so you have to make sure that you're matching that compatibility. Now, the RAM is probably a bit of overkill for this motherboard on a Z170, but it's BDI 3733 RAM. If I'm honest, I have to still do a bit more testing to see how well the motherboard likes BDI, because most of the Z170 gaming motherboards tend to favour towards the EDI pattern or the Hynix SK, which is where your middle timings are 2 notches higher than your CAS latency timing. For example, 16, 18, 18, 36 on a kit of 32 DDR32 Corsair LED, which runs E-timing, whereas BDI would rather run 17, 17, 17, 37, or along those lines. So motherboard's BIOS has to be able to cope with that. I'm sure I can, given it's an Asus and a quality board, I'm confident that I will eventually get that to run where I want it to run, but at the moment it's not running at XMP settings. It is at the upper end of the frequency for this board that it can handle. It's probably going to settle back down into a sweet spot of somewhere around DDR 3600 with some tighter timings. I mean, even if I ran it at 3200, I think I could probably achieve 12, 12, 12, 28, 13, 13, 13, 28 with some manipulation of some RAM timings, and you get your subs right. And I mean, if you know anything about RAM, getting your second and third timings is as important as anything else when you're timing your RAM. Temperatures. The graphics cards, while running on fans, were hitting 80, 85 degrees. I'm in Australia, it is summer, and it's quite warm here. On the day I did that was probably about 30, 31 degrees. It throttled back due to those temperatures because time SPI score was about 11,300. Ran beautifully. But with the water blocks on there, we're talking no thermal throttling. So it hit 12,300, which is a nice increase just at stock settings without changing anything. And the water temps came down to, it was on a 36 degree day recently, and on time SPI they didn't go above 41 degrees. I have since run Furmark, or it's actually EVGA Scanner OC, and just getting the program name right, and it would run at about 50, 51 degrees after leaving it for a while, which is about as hot as a test as you can probably give its Furmark, or the equivalent thereof, don't know. I've mentioned before, I think, that the chip he got, the CPU 6700K that's on here, if you've forgotten, Z170 Sabertooth motherboard, Mark S, the CPU's got is a very nice chip. So it's running at the moment at 1.344 volts on an auto LLC, but I can see that it's running at a high type LLC by itself, which other boards don't quite do. They run very loosely. It's hitting 4.7 as an overclock, which is very good for 1.35 volts. I have no doubt at all we could hit 4.8 on this. the CPU is not de-lidded. If you don't know what de-lidding is, look up my other video, I think it's still on YouTube. It's separating the integrated heatsink from the CPU PCB and replacing the thermal conductivity or conductive paste that's underneath with a liquid metal. So if he did that on this CPU, I doubt very much we couldn't get to 5 gigs. It's a really, really nice CPU. He's blessed by the Silicon Lottery. SiliconLottery.com, who bin these chips, were selling those at a premium price when they were testing the chips if they had one like this. I'm very pleased with the build and how it's turned out. Obviously the colours up to the client, and he prefers this sort of a look. Personally, I like to show up the red red. It could probably do with a couple more LEDs, one at the top here and perhaps one at the bottom to show up the cards a little bit more. Unfortunately, ridges like this aren't everywhere on the case. There's not a lot of spots to put LEDs when the client wanted a glow look. He did not want the LEDs to be visible. So I'm going to push that up a bit further. So he wanted the glow look. I think we've achieved that for the most part. A couple of strategically placed lights could probably improve that a little bit, but you've got to leave something for the client to have a tinker with once he gets his build going. I'm just trying to think of anything else I might not have covered. Let me look at my list that I wrote down. Yeah, no, I think I've pretty much covered everything that needs to be done. Thanks for watching the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in a couple of sources. Please subscribe and keep watching. I'll be trying to post as much enthusiast stuff up as I can in my busy schedule. But thanks again for coming along. Look forward to producing another video for you. Thanks very much.